Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory, a proud supporter of WQPT, has been serving Quad City families since 1889. Now providing live stream capabilities for viewing your loved one's funeral or memorial service at their chapel in Rock Island.
The race for a vaccine, why it'll take more than that to beat back a pandemic, and preserving the history of Rock Island's downtown, why that's a little bit easier in the cities. Since the pandemic started impacting our everyday lives, we've either thought it would fade by itself when the weather got warmer, or we'd find a medical miracle. Well, the first hope didn't happen, and the second one hasn't happened yet. And that search for a vaccine is taking time. Why? And will it be the pivotal moment we hoped it would be? Dr. Dara Wegman-Geedy is a professor of biology, immunology, virology, and public health at Augustana College, so she knows a thing or two about the medical race going on right now. So why is the discovery of a vaccine so difficult? And why is it that we shouldn't necessarily peg all our hopes for recovery on just one vaccine? Dr. Dara Wegman-Geedy is an Augustana biology professor who specializes in microbiology, immunology, and public health, so she knows a thing or two about the making of vaccines. You know what, Doctor? A lot of us think of the fight against polio. Dr. Jonas Salk became a hero. That silver bullet cure that changed everything. That's not going to happen this time, and why not?
Wow, silver bullet. I guess the first thing I'd like to say is that polio, of course, we think of it as a silver bullet, but remember that polio had been a recurrent disease summer after summer since the early 1900s, and the vaccine wasn't even discovered or figured out until the 40s, 50s, I think it was when it was finally figured out. So silver bullet makes it sound like it's sharp and it's fast and it happens very suddenly, but people were working on that for a long, long time. So once the vaccines, in fact, there were two vaccines, both Sabin and Salk vaccines, and so to think of it as a silver bullet, I think, is the idea that people had been hoping for so long for something that would prevent the disease and protect their children. So I guess to answer your question, I look for the idea of silver bullet is that it's kind of in hindsight we think of it as a silver bullet, or to look back at where those people were year after year worrying about their loved ones. But here we are with a brand new disease. And yes, there have been coronaviruses that we've known about. The first SARS in the early 2000s, 2003, and MERS, which is the Middle Eastern Respiratory Syndrome virus. And that one was in the early 2010s, I think it was 2012. And so we've known about coronaviruses and we understand about them, but I guess we've gotten comfortable, we've gotten complacent also in the US with infectious diseases just aren't the problem they were in the 1910s and the 1920s and the 1930s. So I don't know that we'll actually have a silver bullet moment looking back at this or looking forward to it, because we just don't have that kind of cultural focus right now. It's a concern. We definitely want a vaccine that's going to help us, but we're in a very different place socially to look at it as a silver bullet.
Well, let's take a look at what's being done right now, because there's so many countries and so many different companies and efforts to find a vaccine, if not more than one vaccines for COVID-19. Is this unprecedented?
Well, unprecedented. I would say that the unprecedented part is the speed at which this vaccine is being worked at or worked on. Because COVID-19, arose so suddenly and it spread so quickly, and because it spreads asymptomatically, there is an urgency to get a vaccine that's going to help protect us, that's going to help us form herd immunity. But the reason that we have this speed, this rate of discovery with this vaccine, is that researchers have been working for at least 10 years on the MERS vaccine and the SARS, the original SARS, if you want to call it CoV-1, for decades now. So they've already been working on it. As I've explained it to a few friends, it's almost as though they've had a oatmeal raisin cookie recipe, and now they're swapping in craisins instead of raisins. So we've got an unprecedented chance to use all the work that's been going on for the last decade or so and just change the one ingredient, the information about the SARS-CoV-2 virus, into the vaccine work that's already been done on the other coronaviruses.
Well, and it is interesting, as you pointed out, in the polio vaccine, that there were two. There was the Sabin vaccine, there was the Salk work that was going on as well. There's a lot that's being said that when it comes to COVID-19, you're going to need more than perhaps one vaccine. You might actually have one vaccine and then a booster a few months later or even a year and a half later. That's not that unusual?
No, it's not unusual at all. One thing about vaccines is that we want to challenge the immune system enough so that the immune system will form memory cells. People may have been reading about memory B and memory T cells. Those are the lymphocytes, the white blood cells that stay in your system. They have already been trained against a disease or against a pathogen so that the second time you're exposed, you respond more quickly and you don't get sick. So the idea is to make a vaccine just harmful enough, just irritating enough to your immune system to train it, but you don't get sick the first time. With actually getting an infection, you will get sick, right, with a real pathogen, not a vaccine, but getting the pathogen, so that you will form memory, but you get sick the first time. So vaccines are kind of we want to weaken the virus, we want to change it, we want to make it unable to be copied and spread, but we want it to still train your immune system. So often, the first vaccine dose doesn't do the trick. For instance, with hepatitis B vaccine. Hepatitis is another virus. We know that you have to have a couple of Hep B vaccines before you form really lasting immunity. There are other vaccines like tetanus, which is not a virus, but of course, you know, you have to get a tetanus booster every 10 years because you didn't really have tetanus the first time. You just had a kind of a tutorial with the vaccine. So you need to have that booster to improve your immune response, your immune memory.
And let's talk about who's going to get this vaccine, let's say vaccine A, whichever is developed. The first question is, I mean, there's a real discussion about people who aren't believers in vaccinations. Yet, on the other hand, you've got the herd work that has to be done to make sure that a sizable portion of the population, of course, is less susceptible to this. So walk me through that. About half of the public believes that they will take the vaccine, the other half not sure or saying no. Is that a big deal?
Well, of course it's a big deal. I guess the idea is that I think the 50% of the population who takes the vaccine, that's fabulous, that's wonderful. Those are the folks who are more than likely going to form an immune response, going to form memory and be protected. They'll be a strong part of our herd immunity. But the idea of herd immunity is that you want to have a very large number of people in the community, and we don't just mean this community, we can even mean the whole world, but we want to have a large number of people, a large percentage, who have immunity, who have those memory B and T cells, so that they can't get infected. We say that they're not susceptible anymore. So we want to decrease the number of susceptible hosts. The thing with a vaccine is that we don't test each and every person who gets a vaccine to take a blood sample and make sure that they formed memory. So we need to not just trust that everybody in that 50%, right, got immunity. We need to vaccinate as close to 100% as we can. And of course, there are people who are immunocompromised. In some way, they might have autoimmune disorders. They might even be allergic to a component in the vaccine. They might be a cancer survivor, various reasons why they can't take a vaccine. So we need to get as close as we can to 100% vaccination, because not everybody who receives a vaccine forms perfect immunity. And the reason for that is everybody's immune system is a little bit different. Just as someone can be allergic to peanuts, other people aren't. So everyone's immune system is a little bit different in the way they respond to pathogens or to any type of foreign substance.
And those would be the people, I would assume, the ones that are most susceptible would be the first in line as far as who would get a vaccine first. I mean, who's prioritized? I know it's a democracy and that we're all equal, but it's really hitting minority populations hard, and it is really hitting elderly, older Americans very hard as well. I mean, does that make it, you prioritize what you're going to do according to that?
I am certainly not on any board that dictates that with the health departments, but certainly the first round has to be the healthcare providers, the folks who are in the trenches and not most susceptible, but most exposed. So those are the folks we need to protect first. So it's going to be all the essential folks that we've seen, the hospital workers, hospital staff, certainly the healthcare providers, but also our first responders. So EMTs and fire fighters and our police force. Those folks who are going to be at risk for exposures are certainly going to be the first pass. After that, we have to look at susceptible populations, but then again, we don't always see older folks being able to take vaccines, right? We know that oftentimes cancer rates increase as folks are older, and so there may be reasons why we can't just immediately give older populations or older cohorts the vaccine. So it'll have to be figured out, and there might be a slightly different vaccine. We know that there are different types of vaccines that can be given, different concentrations, literally, of vaccines to be given for children versus adults versus the elderly, even for the flu vaccine. So there may be something like that where a certain vaccine is provided for elderly or folks who are at risk, and other vaccines are used for maybe folks who are not immunocompromised in any way or at risk of not responding.
The other big issue, of course, is you're going to develop the vaccine, but then you have to manufacture it and you have to distribute it. That's going to take time as well.
Well, that's one of the cool parts about this vaccine. We talk about it as the vaccine, but there are actually very different vaccines right now. One of them is a vaccine that is has been, how can I say this? There's a type of vaccine that has been used a lot in animals, a vaccine preparation process used in animals for decades very safely. But this is the first time we're using it for humans. And it's the vaccine that they've been working on for MERS and for SARS for decades now. So it's been through the first couple of trials in humans, and it's been very good. But the vaccine is, instead of giving a weakened virus or a part of the virus, they actually use the mRNA of the virus, which is the genetic information inside the viral particles. The beauty of using that mRNA is that when you give it to a human, their immune system cells can pick up that mRNA, and it's kind of like a blueprint that the cells can read, and then they can actually manufacture little bits of viral protein so that we don't have to make it in a laboratory first, put it into bottles, produce it, ship it, get it all sent everywhere. Instead, we produce the mRNA, which is much faster to produce. It's much quicker that we can produce that in the lab. And then that mRNA-based vaccine can be given to people, and then their immune systems will make that protein. And that's really going to cut down on the production process for this vaccine. That's one of the reasons why we think that we'll be able to, maybe even 2021, get the vaccine out to people.
Another example of why this is a much different world than it was in the 1950s with polio and Dr. Salk. Absolutely. Dr. Wegman-Guidi, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Augustana biology professor joining us from the campus. Augustana College biology professor Dr. Dara Wegman-Guidi. And still ahead, capitalizing on Rock Island history. But first, going out and about. It's still possible despite the COVID restrictions in and around the Quad Cities. Here's Laura Adams with a virtual tour of what is out and about.
This is Out and About through August 31st. Gilda's Club welcomes ABC correspondent Amy Robach, a special event August 28th at 11:30 a.m. Or catch a virtual Recycle the Runway fashion show featuring outfits created from recycled clothing, August 27th at 6:30, benefiting Dress for Success. The Body, Mind, and Spirit Expo takes place the 29th from 9 to 5 at the Riverfront Event Center in Clinton, Iowa, while Renwick Mansion hosts the festival, a school drive, on August 22nd from 5 to 11. Tickets are $20. Sip, sample, and shop your way through Shops with Hops in LeClaire. Enjoy samples from the best craft breweries on the 22nd starting at 3 p.m. Or check out all of the performances coming to the Rhythm City Casino, starting with a legendary tribute to the Cars and Bon Jovi the 21st beginning at 8. The Irreverent Warriors Silkies Hikes are a series of therapeutic events for veterans using humor and camaraderie to heal the mental wounds of war. Join them the 22nd at 7:30 a.m. at the Dillon Memorial Fountain in Davenport. Thursday night live musical entertainment at Circus Speakeasy begins every Thursday at 7, while the Black Box Theater present the 39 Steps, a live radio play August 20th through 30th. Safety protocols are in place. And enjoy WQBT's virtual screening of Ken Burns Presents The Gene, an Intimate History, followed by a 45-minute talk with Charles Darwin, August 26th. For more information, visit WQPT.org.
The Quad Cities is all in this together. We take care of one another, because that's who we are. So mask up, wash your hands, stay informed, and continue to support our QC businesses. We rally together while staying apart, so that in time, we can get back to the very best version of the Quad Cities.
Thank you, Laura. Jenny Lynn Stacy is one of those musicians writing her own material but not yet able to take to the stage to perform it all. She did perform some of her own original work on the stage of the Black Box Theater in Moline before the pandemic broke out. So Jenny Lynn Stacy with I Prefer.
Hello was my name. My heart was much the same. Thankfully, my mind sorted it out in time for a better day. A pause between the takes, when life will give me breaks. Thankfully, my heart sorted it out in time for a better day. In time for a better day. When you found me, I was feeling cold. What could you do to me? Hell, I do not know. But I love you, I say it all the time, and I prefer it this way. Oh, I prefer it this way. Oh, I prefer it this way. And I must be excused. My mind's going to lose it. Regretfully, I have gone off the trail in time for a better day. In time for a better day. When you found me, I was feeling cold. What could you do to me? Hell, I do not know. But I love you, I say it all the time, and I prefer it this way. Don't you need me? Is this all way too fast? I'm not the easiest to love, hell, I do know that. But I dig you, I say it all the time, and I prefer it this way. Oh, I prefer it this way. Oh, I prefer it this way.
Jenny Lynn Stacy at the Black Box Theater in Moline with I Prefer. Rock Island found out that after years of work, its downtown is now on the National Register of Historic Places. But what does such a designation mean, and will it make any difference in the city's future? Miles Brainerd is the city's planning and redevelopment administrator, and he joined us to talk about those questions. And joining us is Miles Brainerd, who is the Planning and Redevelopment Administrator with the City of Rock Island. This is not an overnight activity. This took you a long time to get this designation.
Yes, you know, the downtown was determined eligible for listing on the National Register back in 2003. So this has been something that's been on the agenda for quite a long time. Took us a while to finally get a grant so that we could pay for it and get it done without any cost to the city.
Well, other than like a feather in your hat, another jewel in the crown, what does it really do? I mean, wow, it's a historic district. You can say that. You can put up nice signs. Other than that, what does it really do?
So you've already hit on the one thing that it does really well, which is give us the prestige and recognition we've always known that we deserved. But the second thing that it does, and the really critical thing, is that it gives us access to historic tax credits. So if people want to do a historically sensitive rehab of a building in the downtown district, they can now get a 20% tax credit back from the government to undertake that project.
Now, are there specific buildings that you still want to see this used on? I mean, is there anything, because the Hyman building's already been renovated. I mean, you've got areas that have already seen a great deal of work. What other areas are you hoping to target?
Well, really all the rest of it. There's a whole bunch of different projects that one can imagine seeing. Some of them are full rehabs, some of them are touch-ups and maintenance work. So people shouldn't think that it needs to be a building that's never been touched. A lot of these properties will need some work in the future as well, just with general wear and tear. Honestly, we're eager to see as many people with as many different types of projects, small to large, take advantage of it as can be. Obviously, we have a lot of different buildings that are currently sitting a little underused. We hope that any sort of even small work that needs to be done to bring them back into use will be pursued.
Well, one big building that's underused right now, of course, is the old Rock Island County Courthouse, which is in the middle of, or towards the end of litigation. We don't know where that's going to go from this point forward. The historic designation, how does that impact the county courthouse right now?
Well, interestingly, the county courthouse had already been determined eligible for listing on the register years and years ago. So the creation and establishment of the downtown district really doesn't change the situation for the courthouse. If the county is successful in court in its pursuit of tearing it down, they can do so without any real additional restrictions that result from the district. However, if there is an opportunity that arises that they are open to for rehabilitation of the courthouse, it can now also take advantage of those historic tax credits.
And let's talk about the way we now look at downtowns. I mean, it's really a sea change over the last 2-3 decades, in fact. I mean, for a while it was like, okay, tear down the old buildings, put in nice shiny new ones, put in streetscape, and everyone's going to flock back downtown. And it worked for some communities, but it hasn't worked for a lot of them, and it isn't long lasting. We're really looking at downtowns differently right now.
Yeah, you know, the downtown will always be the downtown, the core of a community. That's true in Rock Island and every other community. It's really a place where every dollar spent is a dollar well worth spending. I think that when we're looking at the downtown holistically and in the long term, we need to not think of it in terms of decades, but in terms of centuries. Downtown Rock Island was here 100 years ago as a prosperous historic district. Who knows what the next several decades or what it might look like in a century will yield. I would say that historic preservation is about investing in a tried and true model of community development. We know that walkable, interesting, culturally rich areas attract business and attract residents. That's true in Rock Island. So when people evaluate the impact of this historic district on the downtown and a lot of our other investments in the downtown, I would ask them to take a long-term view and really think about what Rock Island's downtown might look like far into the future.
And with that thought, it makes me go back also to what we're living through right now with COVID-19, kind of a reassessing of gatherings and open spaces, even inside buildings, open concepts of buildings. You're seeing schools that used to have gatherings for education that are now going back to desks and keeping further apart. Is that something that you have to consider now, or as you said, years from now when the virus won't be having this type of an impact, or decades from now it won't be having an impact? You know, maybe that's not what we have to be concerned about when it comes to downtown planning.
Well, regarding COVID, I would say this too shall pass. Ultimately, in the scheme of history, this pandemic will be just a blip. A year, 2, 3 from now, hopefully we'll have a vaccine and be moving forward. I think that the pandemic does have an opportunity to show us a few important things, though. We probably don't need as much office space as we used to in the past. And so a lot of open spaces that may have in the recent past been marketed for office space really can be converted over into something else, maybe housing, who knows. As for just general public space, though, there will always be a demand for gathering spaces. People will always want to come together in large groups for festivals, music events, all sorts of things, just hanging out even. So the pandemic may have put a damper on that for the time being, but it'll come back. And it's important for us to recognize when we're looking at urban design and urban planning that that's kind of how it always has been and probably how it always will be.
Right now is the era of downtowns. I mean, Moline is looking at what it's going to do once the I-74 bridge is gone. Bettendorf, of course, doing the same thing. Davenport announcing a new initiative for its downtown as well. Rock Island with the historic district. I mean, this is a time when really cities are looking inside themselves for future growth and, as you pointed out, being tourist attractions and magnets in your community.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I would say the time when the downtown wasn't the core of everything is really the unusual period. It's the exception to the rule. Before the 1950s, downtowns were the center of all commerce and entertainment. I think, in fact, what we're seeing is not a fad, but a return to what was true for the longest period of time. The idea of going out to the edge of town, to some strip mall or suburban area for your entertainment and your shopping, that's the blip. That's the unusual thing. So really, I think communities are getting back to basics, going back to the tried and the true, and returning to what they do best, which is high quality, more dense, more interesting downtown living and shopping and entertainment, dining, you name it. It's all in the downtown.
But on a personal note, I mean, you're in charge of planning and redevelopment. This is a fun time to be working on downtowns.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. I also live right in the middle of downtown as it happens. So I live in downtown, I work in downtown. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing in the office focuses on downtown, so I live and breathe it.
Miles, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Take care. Miles Brainerd, Rock Island's Planning and Redevelopment Administrator. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
Whelan Presley Funeral Home and Crematory, a proud supporter of WQPT, has been serving Quad City families since 1889. Now providing live stream capabilities for viewing your loved one's funeral or memorial service at their chapel in Rock Island.